quite monumental in regards to reports about the previous election on August 8th and this upcoming one. Marcus, thank you very much for your time. So now we've seen quite a number of issues coming up in regards to this October 17th date, people refuting the date, and a number of other issues about, should we postpone the examination for KCSE and KCPE or retain them and have the elections earlier. So from your point of view, what can you tell us about this whole situation and the environment right now in the country as we wait for October 17th?
Thank you, Betty, for having me here. I think the environment, as we approach the fresh election day, is very polarized.
Wow.
Coming from...
More than it was before, I think August 8th?
More than ever.
Oh, really?
Because there are those who feel that their victory for the 8th August election was stolen, and therefore that's why the courts had to rule in the way they did.
Yes.
There are those who feel that the judges denied them what they thought was their victory. So both camps feel that we are not happy with the decision of the court. I mean, one side is happy with the decision of the court, the other one is not happy with the decision of the court.
Right.
So ultimately, the ground is becoming very hostile, if you will, depending on where you're coming from. And so as we move to 17th of October, you'll see more emotions and tensions building up towards the elections day.
All right. Actually, there are quarters that are saying that this is going to be an emotional, to some extent, kind of election. But just looking back at, the August 8th election, and, the observers, they were really hit hard because they said one thing and then the Supreme Court ruled, against some of the things that they had said. And we had quite a number of respectable institutions coming out to give their analysis of how the elections were conducted. So from Elog, I mean, coming from a point that, there are questions being raised about a number, not all, but of observers in the country and from beyond. What can you say are some of the issues that you remember vividly about the August 8th election and what should not happen coming into the October 17th election?
Now, let me speak for Elog for this matter, and of course by extension for all observers that pronounced themselves a few days after the election.
Right.
That the way Elog looks at elections, we look at elections as a process and not as an event. And we have the pre-electoral period, we have the electoral period and post-electoral period. Now, the work of an observer, therefore, is to observe the various phases of the cycle, find out what is happening, draw recommendations, and share those recommendations with the relevant institutions so that they can be able to take steps to improve the process. And as far as Elog is concerned, we have been monitoring we were monitoring the pre-electoral environment right from January of 2017. We monitored the voter registration, we monitored the party primaries, we monitored the campaigns, we monitored the participation of the special interest groups in the electoral process, and we raised fundamental questions and called on a number of bodies to improve on their systems. Now, on the elections day, we also monitored the processes of the setup of a polling station, the voting, the counting, and the announcements of results. Now, what we pronounce ourselves, usual observers, is that on the elections day, we say the voting went well.
Everything
went well.
Yes.
And then, based on our projections, we shared our projections to the public, but at no point did we say the elections were free and fair and credible, because the process of our observation, we observed a number of fundamental issues that we addressed the public, and also, and in private, we addressed a number of relevant bodies that please take notice of these issues and address them. Now, even as we move to the October 17th date, and in light of the judgment that has come from the Supreme Court, the courts have indicated a number of issues. They spoke about irregularities. They spoke about illegalities that were committed in the process without clearly telling us what these issues were. And in a nutshell, they were saying that these irregularities, these illegalities were so fundamental that the results that were announced are invalid, null and void, to the extent that the process was inconsistent with the Constitution and the electoral law. Now, my suggestion, and even as we move to 17th October election, that there is need for the courts to move with speed to be able to bring into public the issues that they found out.
Right.
So that even as the commission is putting its house in order, even the players should put their house in order. And the players mean both the president and the opposition leader and even the voter, because we all play together to ensure that the process is credible.
All right.
Yes.
Interesting. And, the country is really waiting to see that detailed ruling from the Supreme Court. And Wafula Chebukati already came out and said that, he wishes it would have been ideal for the commission to have seen the ruling so that they do not make the same mistakes that they did according to the ruling of the Supreme Court. Do you think that maybe we could be missing a big opportunity to correct the wrongs that would happened in the August 8th elections if IBC actually proceeds with the processes preparing for these elections without seeing really what are the fundamental issues that the court raised?
I think, Betty, one of the fact that there has been a reorganization of the Secretariat, they must have an idea of where things went wrong.
They have an idea?
They have an idea. I mean, a number of observers have, and I tell you the truth, even Elog, we've had one-on-one meeting with the commissioners and the Secretariat, and I'm sure other players have met them, even in private, and I've told them that these are the things we have seen, and perhaps there's need for you to work and address them. And I'm sure they're doing that. So even before the detailed ruling comes to the public, there must be something that they know. And I'm sure they are not just playing into the hands of the opposition when he has reorganized the Secretariat.
And, and finally, just talking about the Secretariat, there are people who are saying, is it really an overhaul, or is it a big change, or the same people, Ezra Chiloba, really pushing aside, might mean something else. Maybe he is actually still the CEO because we do not have anybody in acting capacity. What would you say about the perception, and how will IBC then create a perception or trust from Kenyans that indeed whoever they choose to coordinate these elections will have a credible results at the end of the day?
But I've always said this, that IBC is a public institution, and as such must exude some fundamental and significant level of confidence in the members of the public. Elections is of public interest.
Right.
And so that the verdict of the Supreme Court of Kenya is quite, it casts serious aspersions on the conduct of the IEBC, which is the body that is mandated to manage elections. So even as they move to this election, really, they must do something that will attract confidence from the public. Now, there are two ways to look at this bet. Now, you want to change the personnel.
Yes.
But there are some fundamental questions that have been raised about the systems and structures in place. So now, whichever way you want to go about it, there are systematic and structural issues that must be addressed within the IBC itself.
All right.
So that it doesn't matter who is in charge.
Who?
Yeah.
Yes.
So those must be addressed. And I think even as they wait for detailed ruling to come out, they need to listen to the advice they have got from different stakeholders as they clean up their house.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much, Marcus Agenga from the Elections Observers Group. Thank you very much for your time. All right, so we want to wrap up the show right now, but just to bring you up to speed with some of the stories we've been focusing on, and also our Twitter poll, we had asked you if you think the changes made at the IBC Secretariat will guarantee credibility in the repeat elections. Like I mentioned, we've had quite a number of tweets and different views that have been coming. Joshua Wera, you say, fine, but the integrity of the process is what is paramount. Just echoing what Marcus has just come out from saying. All right, Kosgei, you say, IBC is an independent body like the judiciary and other bodies recognized by the Constitution of Kenya. Dan Dan Ojoa, you say these are cosmetic changes. Chiloba is still CEO and in control. Only changes will be when Chiloba and the company totally leave office. So those are just some of the comments. I can't read all of them that have been coming through. Thank you very much for them. And yeah, so I don't know if you have time to just take a look at some of the changes that we're talking about in regards to the changes made at the IEBC Secretariat. So let's just take a look at the profiles of some of the people, actually people who were part of the Secretariat and who have since been axed. We start with the man who has been on the mouth of very many Kenyans for the last couple of weeks, Ezra Chiloba. Just taking a look at some of his credentials, his education background. He holds a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Nairobi and also a Master's in Public Policy from the Central European University. Going back to his professional background, which is really extremely important, Deputy Team Leader in charge of governance and the DFID Danida program. He also worked at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and also another place he worked was the Center for Minority Rights Development. Of course, right now he has been the CEO of IEBC, head of the Secretariat, and really quite a number of people have asked that he leaves office because they feel that indeed he was part of the problems and the illegalities and irregularities that were mentioned during the Supreme Court ruling. So that is Ezra Chiloba, who apparently, according to Wafula Chebukati, has been pushed aside. But there are questions about just what pushing aside means. Is he still the CEO? And if indeed he is still the CEO, quite a number of questions of whether he still has some level of influence. All right, let's move on to Betty Sungura Nyabuto. Now, she is the Deputy Commission Secretary in charge of operations. She is really under Chiloba. Looking at her educational background, Bachelor of Laws from University of Nairobi. She also holds a Master's in Laws, International Trade and Investment Law. Coming to her professional background, she is an advocate of the High Court, and she's also the immediate former CEO of the Law Society of Kenya. Worked with FIDA, very importantly, and also authored publications in regards to good governance. So even Betty Sungura Nyabuto has also been pushed aside to pave way for the new team that Wafula Chebukati named yesterday. Moving on to somebody else who was also part of the Secretariat, and that's the man Marjan Hussein Marjan. Now, he has been mentioned since yesterday because Wafula Chebukati has put him as the head of the coordination, the project coordinator in regards to the fresh presidential elections. So Marjan Hussein Marjan, he has been holding the position of Deputy Commission Secretary in charge of support services. But right now, according to Wafula Chebukati, he's moved up and he's going to be the project coordinator for this election that is coming up on the October 17th date. So that's just part of the Secretariat. Of course, you also have Emmanuel Kasait, who's also been pushed, Immaculate Kasait, who's also been pushed aside together with Praxidis Torore, and also not to forget ICT Director James Muhati. All right.